Hi, I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Pastor Stephanie Lape. I serve at Crossing Crown Lutheran Church in Rancho Cucamonga, California. And I'm doing a follow-up video to the one that I did last week about being an HSP, or a highly sensitive person, as that description was coined by Dr. Elaine Aron in her book, The Highly Sensitive Person, and also lots of other books that she wrote after that, like The Highly Sensitive Child and The Highly Sensitive Person in Love, and I think she has one, The Highly Sensitive Person at Work, but I'm not sure. She has a variety of these books. Anyway, her research is fantastic. She's a research psychologist, and she's interviewed many people and found this trait to exist in about 20% of the population. You sometimes hear 10 or 15%, but the largest one I've heard is 20. So it's not the normal way of understanding things or processing things. Your brain just works differently. So this is not to say that the highly sensitive person is better or superior to somebody who doesn't happen to have these kinds of sensitivities. This is just in order to help people with the HSP trait to feel like they're not worse than other people, that they're not flawed. Because a lot of us grew up being told that we were too sensitive, as if there was some optimal sensitivity for people to have, and we overextended that, and also that it was in our will to dial that back in so that we were not as sensitive. And that's just never going to happen. People can learn to mask that or pretend, but that's just living an inauthentic life. So I made a video last week about what it means to have high sensitivity, and if you're this kind of person, how to recognize that in yourself. And so I heard from some of you, a handful of you, that you related to this trait and that you would like to see this second video that I suggested in that first one that I could make about some things you could do that could help if you are an HSP. Also, if you are in a relationship with an HSP, this might be helpful for you to know some of these things so that you can understand them a little bit better. So if you have not seen that first video, I suggest you go back in this playlist and look at that first one that says, are you an HSP? Just so that you can know what I'm basically talking about. Okay, so I have 5 tips that have really helped me as an HSP to understand all of this and to live with this, because it's not something you're going to ever live or outgrow, not live with. The first thing that I recommend that really has helped me is just acceptance. Now, I would say this for anybody, because as I see people as a pastor for pastoral counseling, what I find at the root of a lot of the suffering that a lot of people go through is a lack of self-love or a lack of self-acceptance. No matter what is going on, if there's an addiction or a relationship problem or struggling with some kind of an issue in life, often at the root of that. And it's helpful to look at the root of any situation, because if you're not, you're just looking at the presenting problem. And if people could have figured it out, they probably wouldn't have needed pastoral counseling. And so when you get to back beyond just the presenting problem and get to the real root of the problem, often what's going on is a lack of self-love or a lack of self-acceptance. So this applies to the HSP as well. If you are only 20% of the population, then it might be told to you, like it was told to me, that I'm supposed to be different, that it's more normal, because it is. It's more typical for people to not be highly sensitive and to not have this trait and to approach the world like other people do. Elaine Aron, this doctor who figured out this term and has done a lot to help people understand this, she has said that basically the world throughout history has been divided into 2 types of people. And, there's always the joke, there are 2 types of people in the world, those who divide the world into 2 types of people and those who don't. So, of course, we're much more nuanced than just 2 types of people. But the way she puts it, there have been the type of people who were the go-getters, the kings and warriors. They were the ones who are the movers and shakers to get things done, to go out into the world, to build empires and to conquer and create inventions and just get out there and kind of, scale mountains and the Indiana Jones of the world kind of thing. Our culture in the United States very much values that. We value more than some cultures do. We value picking yourself up by your bootstraps, getting things done, setting a goal and achieving them, and all of that. My father, who was not an HSP, extraordinarily valued that. So even though he generally accepted who I was, he also very much, I'm talking like very much, um, encouraged me and everybody he knew to set goals, to persist in them, to achieve them, and all of that. So the world is a lot of those kinds of people. But then there's this other class of people who are the advisors, the spiritual advisors, and those would be more the HSPs. The people who could see the wisdom underneath all of these conquests and what people should or should not do. Now, every great leader has had spiritual advisors, and it would be a real shame if they didn't. Because if you're always in the action mode, just going out there and getting things done, and you don't stop to think, well, should I do this? And is it wise to do this? Then you're just going to do the action mode into a world of problems. And maybe that action should never have been accomplished. So to think of this in an extreme way, I like to think of the movie Jurassic Park. If you saw the first Jurassic Park, you saw where some people had some incredibly creative ideas to create this park of dinosaurs. And then there's the Jeff Goldblum character who's like, hey, should we do this? Just because we can do this, does it mean it's wise to do this? And I'm like the worst person to see that movie because I'm always yelling at the screen, you idiots, what are you thinking? Creating a park of dinosaurs. So the world needs the advisors, the therapists, the counselors, the pastors, the artists, the poets, the musicians, the ones who step back and say, hey, I've analyzed this and this might be a wiser path than that. So if you are an HSP, you are one of those advisors, most likely. It's more likely that people come to you if they have problems and want empathy and want to work things out. So just see your strengths and begin to accept and love who you are. You're not meant to be like any other part of creation. You're meant to be you, and you have unique strengths. Not everybody's going to get you, and that's okay. Not everybody gets every part of creation, but you're very needed in this society. And so you don't have the strengths of some people, you have the strengths of you. So if you can learn to accept and love yourself for who you are and see the goodness and the beauty and the need that the society has for who you are, that's a really important step. The second thing is the second tip is recognize when you are overwhelmed and do some things about it. Now, before I learned about this HSP trait, which was like a month ago, I did not ever feel that I was overwhelmed. I could feel bad, or I could feel stressed, or I could feel sad, or I could feel angry, or I could feel frustrated, but I never thought in the term overwhelm. But now I'm seeing that that's what I mean when I feel all of those other things. When I feel sad or stressed or worried or frustrated or whatever, chances are I'm overwhelmed. Chances are what's really going on, again, it's like the root of the problem behind the presenting problem. Chances are I've just taken in too much input. Now, the input could be from the outside stimulus, or from the inside, just worries or mulling over things or ruminating or just stressing. That's overwhelm. And so recognize that and recognize it early, so that then you can do something about it. And what I do, and what a lot of HSPs do, is pull away. HSPs need a lot of alone time. And if your family knows that, they won't be upset. It's not that you don't want to spend time with your loved ones or whatever. It's just that you might need to go to bed a little early, or to have an hour to yourself in the morning or at night or whenever in the afternoon or whenever you're overwhelmed. Pulling away is not a rejection of your loved ones. It just is cutting off all of the stimuli, I think that's plural, happening to you. So an example for me is that I changed my work routine. So I normally take Fridays as a day off, and I changed that. No, sorry. I normally take Mondays as a day off, and I changed that to Friday. So last Monday I worked. Now, that's like the smallest thing ever. It's just a change in routine, no big deal. But a change in routine for an HSP means that you're processing it and that there is stimulation happening. I also drove to my church, which, the last 6 months, I haven't gone into the office very much during this quarantine time. So I drove to my church and I worked in my office for Monday. Now, again, it's not like a bunch of stuff happened. I got a lot of work done pretty much alone the whole day, but it was different. It was new. It'll take some time to just settle into that new routine. So when I came home later on that day at about 4 o'clock, I was pretty tired. I made dinner for my family, but I was happy that it was just warming up leftovers because I don't need more stimulation after I had that stimulating kind of day just with the change happening. Now, it doesn't matter if somebody else wouldn't find that as stimulating. It doesn't matter what other people do. It matters what's true for you. So for me, I was tired. That meant overwhelm. So I heated up leftovers for my family. We watched a movie together that my daughter picked out. And then at about like 8 o'clock or so, I was like, okay, guys, I'm going to bed. I pulled away from my family. They know that I do that sometimes when I just need some space. I actually went upstairs. I wasn't going to go to sleep at 8, and I couldn't sleep at 8, and I watched an episode of The Twilight Zone. Now, for me, that's very comforting because I grew up with the show and I love it, and it just gets me really relaxed. In my very minimalist bedroom, I have like no decorations in my bedroom to have just very like a peaceful, calm place. Other people would like an hour gardening, or other people would like an hour baking, sewing, whatever it is for you. Find a way to decompress. That then sets me totally back to normal. Also, sleep does. So have a lot of sleep. HSPs need a lot of sleep. Okay, the third tip is how to also recognize when you've been using your empathic skills and you might need to pull away from that. So that's a bit different than overwhelm. It can be overwhelming, but it's not just the stimulation coming at you. It's specifically using your gift of empathy, and that sometimes that can be too much. So an example for me, I think I said this on another video at one point, but that was just a changing point in my life, was when I was doing chaplaincy work at Loma Linda University Hospital. And I can be in situations that are very traumatic. Of course, as a pastor, I'm called to that sometimes, and it's fine. I can be in places where people are dying or hurting or in pain or suffering or scared or whatever it is they are. I'm empathizing with them, I'm praying with them, I'm talking with them, I'm listening to them. But then afterwards, I must let it go. Because if I don't, I'll carry it with me and it'll be too much. There's one savior of the world and I'm not it. And I'm not able to fix everybody's problems as much as I want to. So I had to learn to go to the chapel at the hospital and tell God, these people are yours and I give them back to you. Essentially, I had to say, they're not my problem. And I'm sure if you're not an HSP, that probably sounds extremely harsh. Not my problem. But the thing is, if I don't do that, I very much carry the weight of these people on my shoulders, and I don't have it in me to be there for the next people who need a pastor. So if I say, not my problem, they're yours, God, not mine, then will I still care about them? Of course. It's literally not in me to not care about people. I can't possibly do that. But if I say, God, they're yours, not my problem, I give them back to you, I push away an over responsibility for people to get back to neutral. I will still care about people. But I can more let the Savior be the Savior and not carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. HSPs need to do this, especially if you're in a helping profession. The fourth tip is to find some calming activities that have the amount of stimulation you need. So we don't want to just sit and stare at our four walls of our house all day. We want to get out in the world. We want to be with people. I mean, we have to kind of be careful right now with this COVID thing, but like, let's say before quarantine, I want to exercise. There's no way you're going to find me in a crowded, loud, noisy, bright gym. Not going to do it. I'm not going to be in a 24-hour fitness or whatever those places are called. It's too much. It's too stimulating. So I exercise alone by going out for walks or jogs in my neighborhood. So I'm finding that balance between stimulation, but not overstimulation. You're not going to find me at bars, big, crowded, loud parties, not at many sporting events. It's too much. So I will meet with friends, a handful of friends, or one friend, and have a good conversation with one person or a handful of people. I'll go to a party occasionally, but it's not going to be the norm for me. I'm not going to be scaling mountains to see nature. I'm going to be walking calmly in nature. So find those things for you that are that balance of a little bit of stimulation but not overstimulation. That's a tip. And then lastly, my fifth tip is to find other HSPs. Find other people that are highly sensitive. Maybe a little bit more than you, maybe a little bit less than you, but still that understand this quality. If you're only surrounded by people that are not HSPs, you're gonna feel weird. You're just gonna feel like nobody gets you and that there's something wrong with you. Please don't let that be your living situation. Find a spouse, a partner, a friend, a pastor, a therapist, a coach, somebody. I mean, reach out to me if you'd like. I completely get you. If you're an HSP, I live it. I understand. You're going to be just fine, but please surround yourself with people who can love and accept you for who you are. I hope these tips helped. Please get a hold of me if you would like to know anything more about this, or if you'd like support for being who you are in the world. You're so needed. You're so wanted. You are also, if you're not an HSP, we need the kings and warriors. We need those movers and shakers for sure. And I so value who you are if you are that. But also we need the advisors, the empaths, those who notice detail and can exhibit that kind of sensitivity that the world really does need for its wisdom, for its care. Have a fantastic day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.